Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report.
The area of down around here, around Mustang Lake, up here on the other side of False Live Oak Point there, this whole shoreline down here. Great wading area, good mud right there off the ICW. It's an area that you really want to pay attention to. If the bait is not really showing itself, but you got presence of bait, this is an area that you really want to take some time and you want to fish it. Just right off of here, off of Mustang. Again, Mustang up in this area here, all this back shoreline, the far shoreline over here on these little back lake areas that go up into the little mouths. You got nice shell that's in this area here. There's been some nice trout that are coming out of here, some good redfish that are coming out of here. Other thing you kind of have to contend with, if you've been out there at least since the 1st of November, are the oyster boats, and there's a bunch of them all up in these areas. So you really kind of have to stay away from where they're at because they're really messing up a lot of areas that we'd like to fish. So these areas really become important. Fish can find safe haven in these areas. You can locate some fish in these areas. Got weather change that's coming. That's happened as far as, our tides are starting to drop a little bit more now. We've got fronts that are starting to push in on us. So that water temp's going to change. So those really areas of that mud, grass, shell, clump shell, that is, are areas that you really want to pay attention to find and locate these fish. Get up in here. It's probably not going to be fast and furious, but you work your soft dine, work these areas with that. Work your XL soft dine. It's been a good bait. Corky's starting to really pop up and starting to become really productive in some of these areas. Again, my go-to that I'm always going to start with and throw always is going to be my down south Magic Grass and Chicken of the Sea have been the two that I throw all the time, majority of the time. The White Ice and the Bone Diamond have been productive the last 2 or 3 weeks. Been putting that in the arsenal as well as far as rotating around to those. The Double D in some of these areas along here have been productive as well. You just have to kind of get on here and find you some bait and just kind of work it. You got to be extremely patient. Some of these fish are not going to just get after it because the bite hadn't been super, super great. The fish are there, but they've just been real light hitting. Really not attacking it super aggressive. You'll have some every once in a while that'll do it, but the majority of the fish, it's been a light bite. So take your time, see what the water clarity is, work your darker baits or your lighter baits based on what's going on with that. Get your major and minor incorporated into that day, and you'll find yourself being productive throughout your fishing day. Get back in these back lakes up here for our Jaybird Point. Big, nice back lake areas, a shoreline up here. Again, this area up here is pretty well predicated on what your water temps are and what your wind is doing. You don't really want to get yourself kind of hung out if you got big north winds that are blowing, pushing into here because it's going to push water out of here and it doesn't set up well for that type of wind. Now, is it fishable? Yes, it is fishable. It just depends on what your wind's doing, what your tides are doing for you, including these back lakes. You got these mouths that dump into here, this big back lake here that works all up in here. There's been some nice redfish that's been caught out of here, some mid to lower slot redfish on a topwater bait. Our topwater bait's been really good. In here, you can get your Double D in here. The Double D, when you're working it, that waist to knee-deep water, it's really productive in that depth of water. If you're going to work that in here, there's plenty of grass in here. Other thing you have to contend with, too, duck hunters. A bunch of duck blinds that are in here as well, and there's been a few that's been back in there. So if they're in there, then you'll have to locate another area. You can work all this, work this shoreline, work the back shoreline, pay attention what your tide is because it's really that back lake. If that water levels are not where they need to be, then this lake will not be fishable. You'll have to end up fishing the guts, the mouths that come out there. But what happens is those redfish, trout, flounder, whatever, they start to drop off on those guts, and there's plenty of mud and grass down there, and those are areas that you really want to emphasize when you fish. Wade those areas. Be slow with it. Be methodical. Work it really well. They'll let you know pretty quick if there's some fish that are hanging up in there. If not, then you've got plenty of other opportunities that are up and down this shoreline as you head down toward Spalding or as you head back toward Long Reef Bend. There's plenty of those guts that gives you that chance. Somewhere in one of those runs through there, if you have the opportunity and don't have somebody already sitting in there, work those guts. Work every one of those guts because you'll find fish in one of them. It'll set up just right. Another thing that you really need to do is pay attention to the water temperature. 1, 2, 3 degree temperature change for warmer for fish is a big deal. They're a lot like us. If they're cold, they want to be warm. So That's the one thing, is you want to make sure, pay attention if your boat's got a thermometer on the GPS, then that's good. If not, take you one with you, a little pool thermometer or something like that, just to check what the temperature is, just to help you out. As you work these mouths, locate your bait. Again, we've gotten into that time of year where a lot of this bait is vacated, so if you see one or two things of mullet that are flipping, that's a lot this time of year, so really pay attention to that. Match what you're doing size-wise, seeing what the moon is. So we're in a full moon phase right now, so you really need to downsize those baits. Water temperatures, water levels, all that plays a part. Make sure that you're paying attention to your majors and minors when those are happening. Incorporate that to your fishing day to help you become productive, especially on days that will be tough. An area that you really want to pay attention to that's become not super great, but it's been really consistent, especially when you have these northerns blow in here, is get up here in Newcomb Bend. Work this back shoreline, because you have a couple of little back lake mouth drains. It's got little guts that are in there. If you walk these areas, you'll know where those particular places are. You just got to get out and get your feet on the ground and work these areas. One thing that's been really good is get your soft dine and soft dine XL. Again, we're going to have probably have a high pressure coming here after this most recent front that we've had pushed through, and with the full moon, so that's really going to dictate you throwing a smaller bait. So the soft dine, your burner shads from down south, or any other bait that's in that 2.5 to 3 inch, 3.5 inch size range will be an area or a size that you want to throw in these areas. Those fish are not going to be super hungry after that pressure comes in here on top of them, so they'll be looking for either one little morsel of bait after a feeding period, or in between those feed periods, and trying to get that smaller bait in there to help your day to continue to be productive for you. That's just one of the ways that you can do that. But work this whole back shoreline. Work it. Be methodical with it. If you got 1, 2, 3 people, spread them out. Get yourselves in there where you're not casting over each other, but you can really work the baits beside that, and that'll help you. Just like a net, you'll locate where those fish are at, and you'll pay attention to what that pattern's doing. And then you can start really narrowing down on what those fish are wanting and where they're at, whether they want a dark color bait, if they want a smaller bait, and a little mid-sized bait, something that's got a little bit more action to it, like the Little Johns by Mirror. Really quality bait, little jerky bait like that. It just kind of shoots and darts all over the place, and you can get your nice reactionary strikes with that type of thing. One of the colors that's been really good in that, based on what the watercolor is either been the golden red glitter or the purple demon, because of the watercolor. Either one of those two, if you got a clear bait or clear water and darker bait, those two have been really good. Continue to work down into this little cove in here. If you got that north wind, it kind of sets up for you and keeps pushing bait in there. If you got too much wind, get around to the point. Get on the other side of Newcomb Bend here and get on Newcomb Point and work down this shoreline here. You've got some nice, good bottom here. There's a lot of up and down, hill and dale in this area here. It's good mud. You got a nice little drop off. There's good grass that's working in here, soft enough that you can really be productive in here. So this one little area between Newcomb Bend and Newcomb Point, based on what the wind doing and how strong it is, you'll find fish that are working here. There's been a nice amount of bait in here. There's been some good box-sized trout that's in here. Again, the one thing you have to contend with are the oyster boats, and they are working out in Copano. If you fished it enough, you'll see them out there running around. So that's the only other thing you really have to worry about. Kind of dirties that water up. So pay attention to that. Work the baits in here. Again, work your majors and minors, smaller size bait for this area for right now, and then just kind of pay attention to what they're doing to locate your fish.
Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Larry Bell.